let's get started. The following presentation is a reenactment of the events that led to the formation of the CCM GIS Consortium. Any likeness between the actors and actual people is purely coincidental. Our story begins in the year 2014, when John Mackenzie was living in Olympia, Washington. Upon learning of the impending birth of his first child, John was forced to confront the reality that his independent GIS consulting gig, which provided limited income and zero benefits, would not be sufficient to support his growing family. After responding to a job posting he found on the website of a local newspaper, John was invited for an interview with the Association of Washington Cities. During the interview, Michelle Harvey, Director of Strategic Alliances at AWC, described the reason they were hiring for the position. A few days after the interview, John received a call from Michelle Harvey. Upon starting his new job, John realized he needed to actually come up with a way for AWC to help cities with data. So he thought, and he thought, and he thought. And then he got an idea. John decided to reach out to some of his contacts in the GIS industry. The research effort consisted of 12 complementary rapid needs assessments to provide an understanding of the GIS-related challenges cities and towns around the state were facing. Additionally, the team launched a survey about the current use of GIS within Washington municipalities. The following is a sample of some of the feedback the research gathered. Using this information, John and Tyler put their heads together to come up with a plan to help cities and towns face the diverse set of GIS-related challenges. They eventually arrived at the GIS Consortium model. The model was structured around three specific goals. Consortium needed to be affordable so cities could access GIS expertise. Consortium needed to be flexible so it could be customized for each individual city and town. Most importantly, the consortium needed to develop partnerships with cities and towns so that municipal GIS employees had the capacity to expand GIS in their community. Okay, so why are we doing this program in Connecticut? This program that we launched in Washington several years ago has been really successful. Close to 40 cities and towns have participated since it officially launched in July 2016. And the consortium has helped municipalities in Washington to implement over $1 million in GIS projects in the last 3 years. So AWC presented about this program at an annual National League of Cities State League Summit. CCM heard about it, thought it was an interesting program, and reached out to Flo to learn more. And a little side story, which is that I had left AWC because after had my second child, we decided to move back to the Northeast and back to Massachusetts and just be closer to family. And I was doing some additional, I had a business doing some other analytical work. And then the folks from Flo reached out to see if we wanted to sort of join teams at the same time that CCM had reached out to Flo to learn more about the program that they helped launch in Washington. And so I had actually had some previous connections doing some work, separate work for CCM. And so when I joined Flo, I helped launch a survey essentially in Connecticut to just sort of gauge interest from cities in terms of, if they were, what they were doing with GIS, if GIS was something that, that CCM might be able to help with. And we did a bit of a market research study as well, just to figure out if it would be a good fit for this type of model. And so we're giving it a shot. It's something that we launched at the absolute worst possible time. We initially launched it, I guess it was either the first week in February or the last week in January. And then, everything shut down and everything's crazy and nobody knows what's happening with funds and all that stuff. But hey, we're going to do everything we can to, the goal of this consortium is really help cities implement GIS in their community. We know it's really valuable and it's important to us to help make sure that the state municipal leagues understand that it's valuable for their community, for their cities and towns to be doing this. And so, we're really working hard to make sure people know it's out there and figure out the ways, it can help them. I'm just going to go through a few little projects here. They're demos, I guess, but I'm not going to go into too many details of some of the types of work that have been done in Washington with this program. And the main thing to think is, I'm just going to show you applications for the most part, because those are what are useful to show during sort of a webinar. But we have also done a number of things like strategic plans and just generally helping cities figure out how they can grow GIS in their community. But I'm just going to show you a few applications that have been done through this program in Washington. So this is just a standard utility dashboard, and it has all the things in here that you would expect. There's, the city manages their sewer lines, their water lines, and their stormwater lines and things like that. And so they, but what's important to note is this is a city that had absolutely no GIS, and they are, I think, have a population of like 400. So it's a really small town in Washington, and they just basically needed to get their data into an online tool so that they could have a sense of, be able to quickly report out sort of the status of their utility networks. So as this is kind of just running in the background here, and you can see it's pretty basic. This is, I think, connected to Survey 123 and Esri Collector app, so that the town can take a look at their assets and make edits as needed. This is another one that I'll show you briefly. This is a little bit different. This is an application that we developed for a city in that's a suburb of Seattle. They're growing really rapidly, and as a result, they had a lot of development happening in their city. And when the residents would be driving by, they'd see these new developments, but didn't have a great way of knowing what was actually going up there, what the development was. And the town was getting a lot of complaints at their local meetings that there was just not enough transparency about what these developments were. And so they reached out to see if we could help connect their building permit database, which was called Track It, to an online web map that they could put on their website. And so that's what we did. There's a lot of behind the scenes work with our GIS developers to sort of sync up the databases, but we were able to create a live link between this Track It permit system and the AGO hosted web map that they were then able to put on their website. And then anytime someone from the building permit division were going in and adding records or editing records, they would just automatically transfer over into the development activity map that was hosted on the city's website. And then lastly, just a different application that we built as well. This is something we've done a ton of times now. It's amazing. This is by far the most popular thing we do for cities these days, which is a cemetery management application. And it's once again, it's done through Survey 123. And it has the town's municipal cemetery, and it's pretty straightforward. It allows we put all the data in there. Obviously, the hard part here is going through all the different cemetery records and relating them to the specific site and the grave, and sometimes there are multiple bodies in the graves and things like that. So some of that requires some sort of funky data management type work to get in there. But this application's been really helpful for cities, and it's something that a lot of cities just keep asking us for it. And so once again, it's connected to Survey 123, allows the folks managing the cemetery to update and manage, maintain their records, and also find out where they have availability, that sort of thing really quickly. So just like I said, these are 3 basic applications, but we've also helped with strategic plans. We've helped doing needs assessments. We've helped launch enterprise GIS. Really, it's like I said earlier, this is really a program that's meant to be very flexible, and it's really just meant to help cities increase the capacity of their GIS, no matter where they are with it. We understand that municipal GIS employees are often overworked or being asked to do way too much. And it's hard to just maintain what you've got going on if you want to do new projects as well and take on those sorts of things. So we try to, try to work with the cities and towns and partner through a partnership with CCM. We're able to sort of demonstrate the value of GIS to folks in the city, maybe the decision makers who don't really know what GIS does. When CCM or another state league says, hey, no, this is important stuff for you to be doing, sometimes it makes those folks more aware of why it's important. And so that's something we've seen in Washington, and certainly hope to see more of in Connecticut, and hope to help municipal employees, really GIS municipal employees, do more interesting work. We're often asked to come in and maybe help take over something that is sort of a more maintenance related type task that's limiting the capacity of the municipal employees to work on a new project that might be maybe a little bit more interesting. And so we can come in, help there, and city employees can sort of work on new projects and help expand that. So I just do want to quickly mention that we are going to be launching something called GIS office hours through CCM. And we're just going to have this. The first one's going to be on Thursday, October 22nd. The idea is that this is going to be a 1 hour, we're just going to be there. You click on that Teams link that's right there, and it'll be me, and I won't provide any useful information. But for this first one, I'm going to have Grant Herbert, who is our GIS developer, and he has tons of useful information. And he's someone you can just, if you have any questions, anything GIS related, we're going to be there. He's going to be there, and he's going to be able to help answer them. Yeah, I think it will just, we're just trying to leave it open. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a member of the consortium or anything like that. If you're a GIS employee in Connecticut, hop on this line if you have questions or don't know how to do something, and Grant can probably set you straight and get you in the right place, that sort of thing. It's the other thing we're thinking about actually inviting all of our Washington cities to join in this as well, thinking maybe it'd be a good opportunity for collaboration between municipal employees from different sides of the country that you probably normally wouldn't interact with, just to sort of exchange ideas. So we're going to launch that on Thursday, October 22nd. I should also say there's on CCM's website, I can send out maybe links to it because it's a little bit buried on their website, but there's information about this GIS consortium. There's a couple of other webinars that we have done about the program, as well as a webinar that we did about using ArcGIS Online for some of these sort of lesser known features rather than just the basic web map. So I can send that information out. And but yeah, so this is a new program. We're excited to launch it. We hope it's going to be useful for everybody. It really is just designed to help increase that capacity of GIS in cities and towns. And I haven't gone into many details about how it works or anything like that. But if you want to ask questions, I can explain there. Or if you just want to shoot me an email, my email address is up there. and I can sort of explain more of the program details. But I will just mention, so Andy Marola he's the member resource and program development manager at CCM, and he's who is overseeing this program at CCM. Andy's a great guy, but he knows nothing about GIS. So if you have any sort of GIS questions, you should probably direct them to either myself or to Kate Doran, who is another one of our analysts here at Flow. And our emails are here as well. And so I know I've been pretty short, I think, but that is all I've got. So maybe by being quick, I've made up for the 5 minutes of dead air that you had to sit through. So yeah, that's it.
There were a couple questions. Looks like Thad had one about if you knew where CCM distributed the survey and what the results showed.
Yeah, so what we did was it went to every city and town in Connecticut, and I think it went to a number of different job titles. So I think if you're a GIS employee, you very well may have got them depending on what the title was. So because we used CCM's database that they have, so it also went to folks like public works directors, engineering folks, and things like that. And it showed that we did a lot and compared it to our Washington program because that served as sort of a baseline of how helpful it might be. And what it showed was that in Connecticut, there seemed to be a lot of the same challenges that cities were facing in that related to the difficulty with capacity to, you had a lot of cities and towns that maybe were doing a lot with GIS, but just didn't have many GIS employees, or the employees were working with all of the different sectors. And the market research, I guess I can get into that a little bit more. What that showed to us was that we found that the cities in Washington, the cities that had a population between 10 and 30,000 were the ones that got the most benefit from our program. And we think a lot of that was because they had these sort of GIS. A lot of times they were the cities that were in the situation where they had, one GIS employee or two GIS employees trying to work with all of the different departments, and that was getting pretty difficult. And when we looked in Connecticut, there are a lot of those cities. So that was like our major takeaway from the market research, is that there were a lot of cities that were in that same position where there is maybe one or two GIS employees trying to work with all of the different departments in the town, because who knows, whenever GIS launched in the town, GIS always proves itself as you start doing it, and then everybody wants to have access to those resources, and it's tough to do when you've only got one or two people working on, solely full-time employees doing GIS in a town. And a lot of times the folks who want the results and be able to use the resources that GIS produces, they don't necessarily know anything about what goes into creating the data and the things that you do. So we found that same situation in Connecticut seemed to be, happening in Connecticut as much as it was in Washington, if not even more so. So I'm just trying to go through these here. I can go into some details. I'm not going to go into too many details just because I don't have those in my slides and I'll probably screw something up. But I can tell you specifically, it's a tiered program, which is that cities and towns can purchase a select amount of, basically you can buy into the program at a different amount. And with each amount, you get a discount on our GIS consulting rates. So the more you buy in for, the bigger the discount you get on the consulting rates, and you get access to all of our team. And then the other piece to that is we also do provide a free rapid needs assessment, which is basically about 4 hours or 6 hours that consists of interviews with our like GIS developer and things like that for cities and towns that are interested in figuring out how they can sort of tailor what might be the best way for them to take their next steps related to growing GIS in their cities and towns. And we'll come in and interview staff and just get a sense of, you know, what your existing data systems are, sort of pop the hood a little bit, take a look around and see, try to map a little path forward for folks to grow GIS within their city or town. This is effort into otherwise. So, you know, the third question here from Carrie, does this effort fit into other mapping efforts, regions across regions and statewide? It absolutely will. And what I mean by that is we try to make sure that everything we do is open and that anything we do with the city, it's really important to us from a company standpoint that the work we do for a city is easily transferable beyond just our work, right? We're trying to make sure that anything, we don't want to put anybody in a box or put any, I mean, we're not like software resellers or you know, or anything like that. We just try to make sure anything we do is easily transferable and can integrate with the other sources and data resources around. We don't have some, you know, we don't have like a top-down approach to that or anything. We just make sure that we're taking into account where there needs to be integration with other efforts, so that we're not locking anything in. We've definitely seen in Washington where cities have either been working with, in some cases it's been a county in Washington, which is a little different than in Connecticut, where the counties have sort of got them using a county system and the county has all of the data, and it's really hard for the towns to sort of break out of that and do anything on their own or work with other groups. And so we are very conscious of that and trying to make sure all of our efforts are open. So that, you know, if you want to work with us, that's great. If you don't want to work with us, we want to make sure you can work with somebody else. And in a lot of cases, we're trying to help cities get to the point where they don't need us. Like the idea is that they can grow GIS internally and can manage all their own systems on their own. Is this just selling? No, it's totally not just, it's almost the exact opposite of reselling ArcGIS Online with initial dev support. So yes, and to the second one. So no, we're not like an ArcGIS reseller or anything like that. We are an ArcGIS partner because, but not as a reseller, just ArcGIS Online partnership because, you know, most GIS consulting companies are. We will work with any software. If we had a really small city that didn't already have an ARC license and they wanted to use QGIS or QGIS or something for specific tasks, we would, you know, see if that made sense for them. So we are not trying to resell ArcGIS Online or with initial dev support. And the membership is the membership is a cost break by sharing services. We're definitely relying on the sort of basic model of sharing, leveraging the collective buying power of city and towns to purchase services at a discounted rate. You know, that's what CCM and AWC and other state leagues do to provide things like health insurance and risk management and drug and alcohol testing for, you know, municipal employees. We are using that exact same model. When I was with AWC, that's how it worked. I went to Flo at the time, who now I'm an employee of, and said, what rates can you give us if we, you know, if you view us not as a market of an individual city or town, but as the market of our collective cities and towns? And as a result, you're able to negotiate much better rates because you represent a much larger group. And so that's exactly the same sort of model we're using in Connecticut. It's the same thing. It's something that municipal leagues do for anything they think is important that they need to have. And so that's the model we're using here. If there are any other questions, maybe I'm just going to drop this link into the chat if that's okay for the office hours. even if you just want to come and say, be like, John, that presentation was terrible. You could join, and that would be fine. But it is hopefully going to be a useful useful service for you. And like I said, I do think it might be interesting to have folks from Washington and other cities. If anything, it could just be a place for you people to kind of share ideas with folks from other cities and towns across the country you probably wouldn't get to interact with otherwise. So that is all I have. I'm just going to try and grab this and put this information in the chat and then stop. So that link probably didn't go through in the chat. I'll just send out an email. That'll work a little bit better. So if you want to pop into those office hours, ask any more detailed questions, that would be a great time to do that. In the meantime, you can always email me. My email is in this presentation if you have questions, and I would be more than happy to go into more detail on anything you have to ask. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you, John. Apologies to everybody. I was having some technical difficulties and kind of got kicked out there. I believe I still have the first half of this meeting, so we should still be able to push it up, but we may have some difficulties. So we are recording this as a second session too, but we should have everything. Up next, we've got Stuart and Bill to talk about Deep's new hub site.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stuart Deland. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm good. And would it be okay if Bill shares his screen?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, this is Bill. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Cool. And Bill, you may want to mute just in this first section before we get going on the demo. Okay.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right, cool. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Stuart Deland. I'm an environmental analyst for the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. I'm joined by my coworker, Bill, also works in the same department for the same goal, more or less GIS admin. So we just want to talk pretty quick today. I know we're on a bit of a timer with the rest of the meeting about the ArcGIS Hub and the open data site that we released recently. Some of the challenges we came up against during the development of it and kind of why we rolled it out. So the original idea was actually passed down by state legislature actually before I started working here, with the mandate to all state agencies basically to do an inventory about data that was publicly available, and with kind of the subtext on trying to make it, if possible, more accessible and downloadable to the general public. And this project actually started before I came to the state in 2018 by my predecessor, who I'm sure many of you know, Beth Doran, and she started looking into Esri's hub technology as a potential way to go about not only figuring out what we had to offer in terms of spatial layers to the public, but also creating a way to streamline the public experience of finding the data, viewing it, and downloading it. And Hub, in its essence, is basically a very user-friendly means of creating both a website and a repository for layers that people can download. So this, and it leverages ArcGIS Online's feature service technology. So it's if anyone has used ArcGIS Online and you've hosted data through either ArcMap or ArcPro or created it somehow on the AGOL platform, you're already half of the way there to being able to leverage the hub to serving that out to the public. So once I came on to CT Deep in 2018, Beth kind of gave me this project to start working on, and kind of the explicit goals that we were looking at were, obviously, as we stated, greater transparency when it came to the public being able to access data, or sometimes in the first place, even knowing the data existed in order to be able to access it. The other two are faster download speeds. The FTP site has sometimes given us trouble in the past based on the size of the data being requested, and we've just run into issues before with certain data layers. AJOL, I'm sure everyone knows, uses the AWS framework for all the services hosted there. So that isn't really an issue. It's as long as ArcGIS Online is up, the downloads are very, very consistent when it comes to Hub. The other last point that we wanted to consider, and the one that's particularly important for Bill and I, is the ability to quickly update or change data sets, metadata, tabular, geometry, anything like that. In the past, it had been kind of an issue as we used an FTP site and still use it for a little while longer, in parallel, because we needed to take the updated data from a production database, copy it, zip it, upload it, get it in file, share it up to the FTP site, and make sure that the URLs that were referencing it were still functional and everything was okay. With this new, with the ArcGIS Online feature layer service powering Hub, all we need to do is start an ArcMap or ArcPro session, and we can either run geoprocessing tools manually, run them through Model Builder, or run Python scripts that can control the updates for us depending on the task. So that was really kind of the framework into which we were approaching this. Make it more accessible, make data maintenance for Bill and I easier, and make sure the public knew how to get to this from the old website. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my coworker, Bill. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Stu. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see the webpage, the Deep Hub site.
Yep, we can.
Excellent. So my name is Bill Toussaint, and I currently work at Deep. Started about in January of this year. Before that, I worked with GIS for a while. I was in Massachusetts working for different towns and cities there, and mostly working using Esri's platform, Esri's applications. In the last few years, spending more time working on databases and applications. I've had some experience with open data, some Hub in the last year or so, and obviously in the last few months working on this project. I did have some experience with ArcGIS Open Data in its infancy, probably 5-6 years ago. So I've seen this product come a long way, and Hub in particular. So I kind of want to just give you a rundown today. We're not going to show you how we built the site, but just kind of give you some general tips about that might be helpful if you're going to be creating a Hub site or looking at this more and more in detail, and then just kind of explain some of the content that we put together on the site and how we laid it out. I'm just going to show you quickly how Stu was saying that AGOL and Hub tie in together. And I want to talk a little bit about the pages that we have. We have 4 main pages. We just tried to keep it kind of concise and the site itself. Talk a little bit about the review process that we went through at Deep before we made this site live, where you can find the site and where it's available, some of the resources that we used to create the page, and then Stu and I will close with some final thoughts. So just jumping into it, I wanted to show you how easy it is just to launch your own site. This here you can see is Deep's ArcGIS Online page. If we go here into Hub, you can see I'm logged in, launch Hub. And then you can just go to new. You can see our site there available at one site. You go to new, name a new site, and it launches. And from there, it's using ArcGIS Online from Hub here, and it's created a new site with some groups. There's going to be 2 new groups that are part of the template. One's for data and content, and the other one will be for the users that will be editing the Hub site. So this, as it runs, it'll create the resources, like I said, in the template. But one good thing to know is anybody that's editing the Hub site needs to be a publisher role in ArcGIS Online. And then another point I wanted to make too is anybody with ArcGIS Online for organizations is using Hub Basic That's what we use. There's also a product called Hub Premium that has more options that you can look into if you're interested. So back to the main site. One thing that we wanted to do and kind of highlight was we tried to mimic what ct.gov looked like, or our DEEP homepage, or the state open data site. So even though you're at a different website at our hub page, we wanted to give you the feeling that you kind of have a similar look, font, and layout of ct.gov. So if I launch our ct.deep page homepage, you do have a little bit similar feeling, some coloring and such. So again, we wanted to kind of enhance the user's experience, like they weren't going completely somewhere else when they actually are. And then we also wanted to create simpler, shorter pages. I think a lot of us know when you start scrolling down, you're going to lose users. So we kept them compact, and people are here to find data. So as you see here, we give some information about GIS itself, search the data, some recent updates. There's some cards here that there's a little bit of redundancy where we have downloadable data, application viewers, and the partners, which you can also find here in the top header. So that gives people options when they navigate the page. The featured application, this is a trout stocking map that's popular. We put on the front page, and then some of the footer information, contacts. So one other thing we took into consideration was wording. Originally, when we built this site, we kind of used some more GIS jargony words like shapefiles and services, web apps, and geodatabases. So as we kind of refine the site more and more, we kind of wanted to open it up to a more general audience, because we don't know who might be visiting this page. It could be someone who does GIS. It could be someone who doesn't at all and doesn't even know what GIS is. It could be a student and a researcher. So we kind of kept it open, where we changed words to be more general, like data, apps, or applications, just to keep it open. The site is also fluid and dynamic. You can add surveys and dashboards. You can see this. I'm not going to go into editing, but you can see the edit symbol here. It's very point and click. Like I said, you can add surveys, dashboards, videos, galleries, maps, charts, all sorts of text and cards. So very straightforward and user-friendly. The site basically is composed of 4 main pages. This is the main page. We have apps, data, and partners. So we'll launch into apps, and you can see some of the application and public viewers that we have. Some here that are highlighted, some of the more popular ones. And then there's the bottom is the footer. So it's a pretty short page. We also share an application gallery that was created in ArcGIS Online. It's an application that's just specifically used for galleries. So you can launch that. And it kind of shows, I thought, kind of a simplistic, easy to read and see way to see these different apps that we have available. These are all shared through ArcGIS Online publicly, and also through the hub. These are different users at DEEP that are sharing their content. And I think we have right now about 30 apps that are available to the public. So going back to the main page, I'll skip over data for a second and go into partners. We just highlighted some of the partners that we work closely with. OPM, obviously a close partner with the state. CT Eco, we have a partnership with them, sharing a lot of data with UConn and such. UConn Clear, Magic, and the user network, obviously today, and NEARC. So just some of the different partners that we work with, and you can go to their sites and explore. And just jump into the data a little bit. Here we're using different cards for different categories. These are all lumped in on ArcGIS Online by different groups. So we have a bioscience group, an environmental group, a geoscience group, and we share the content there. And these cards are pulling different data sources for each subject or category from those groups on ArcGIS Online. So it's a neat way to kind of sort it and make it available. Get a little information here about what kind of data that is available and you can download. Again, you can search again, and the recent data updates, and there's some information here of CT Eco and going to access any imagery. I just wanted to jump into the data quickly, loading the hydro data. You can see some information about different content types that you can sort and filter, categories. That these are all can be controlled in ArcGIS Online to help kind of refine your search, and then tags. We kind of went tag heavy, tag crazy. We're still working on this a little bit. In the past, I've been told a lot of different tags, but you can see we have open data, we have CT, Connecticut. So it's something that we're looking to maybe to streamline or to refine a little bit with this search. I'm going to load into the data, one of the data layers. You can see the visual here on the map and hover over it and see different attributes. The description here, we're able to put a link for a data guide on CT Eco. So that was pretty neat, the hyperlink in the description. Some of the attribute information that's available here. And another important piece is metadata. This is all set up in Arctis Online. Pick the type of metadata that you want available to be displayed. The data itself, again, you can see the attributes and records. They show 10 records here. You can sample, view those, and then download. And download what kind of file you want, whether it's a type of file or it's a spreadsheet. So let's see. Let's go back to the main page. So a little bit about the review process. We worked with different Power GIS users at Deep, about 10 or so. We shared the page with them this past summer, and we got a bunch of different comments, Stu and I did. Many of the comments were about the search tool, some of the tags and the categories that I was showing there before, and some layout suggestions. We found that the search tool could be a little bit wonky. Folks were searching geology and getting wildlife data. I think it's based on keywords, so if there's wildlife in the description for a geology data set, it's going to pull that up in the search. So some of this might be out of our control, but again, we're kind of trying to fine tune the process and make it work better, and cleaning up some of those tags as we move forward. We also met with Esri on the review process. They were very helpful. We met with some of their hub experts, and they focused mostly on a UI and UX design, so mostly about layout and design and the user experience when someone visits the page, and how can the site best be displayed and make the visuals, and including different pieces like the app galleries and surveys or such. So both reviews were very helpful, and you're kind of looking at the product today after those reviews. So and again, it's still in the process of making changes. As I said, it's dynamic, the site. So where can the hub site be found? As Stu mentioned, we're retiring our data download site, but you can find this page, the hub page, on our Deep GIS page. Right now, in the last month or couple months, the hub page and the Deep Downloads FTP site were running parallel together, and we'll be retiring the data downloads FTP site October 1st. You can also find this page available on data.ct.gov, so the state's open data page. There's an icon there to access, and then the site URL. Some of the resources that we found that were helpful were, if you have access to Esri Training, there was a few modules and trainings available that I viewed that were helpful to kind of get some tips on hub. Also, just straight up web searches. Google's our friend, so YouTube, GeoNet was helpful with different articles to kind of pick through some stuff and get some ideas and help problem solve a bit. There's also a pretty neat Esri customization site. Share that here. And if you feel like kind of getting down in the weeds and working with HTML or CSS, and you're comfortable with that, it gives you samples here of what you could do on the website and the hub site, and then some of the code too, and you can customize that. So we actually had some customization. I don't think it made the final cut, but it's again something we can add down the road. And also on top of that, there's this link to a gallery page. And I was kind of checking out a bunch of the different latest and greatest sites, and some really neat ones, and getting some ideas. So that was helpful. And then also looking at other sites in New England as well, and some of our colleagues. I was looking at those and getting ideas, and that was very helpful. So some closing thoughts on the hub itself and the project. It's, as Stu mentioned, it's relatively simple to create a site, and it's mostly hands-off. A lot of point and click, creating the different cards and such on the page. And you can customize, again, as much as you want if you're comfortable with HTML and CSS. All the data, as Stu mentioned too, is hosted in the cloud by Esri. So scalability is an option, and outages are mostly not a concern. It's not on our servers. You can point the fingers at someone else. And the efficiency of the platform and the speed at which it can be accessed is terrific. It's a leap light years ahead for us when we're using our data downloads FTP site. So, Stu, I don't know if you have any pieces that you want to add.
I think I'm good for now. I guess we can open it up to questions for now, just, in the interest of time and everything. I guess, does anyone have any questions for either of us?
This is Mike at Westcog. I have a few questions for you. So I was curious if this is hosted, if the data is hosted on ArcGIS Online, posted on some enterprise that you have. If it's hosted on ArcGIS Online, is it using up like storage credits and that kind of thing? So if you had big data,
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So all the things that are going to be put through our hub, this isn't the case for every hub, but the way we've decided to go about it is posting all of the data that you find on hub to our ArcGIS Online account. You can use the enterprise, but we are just using AGOL, and it does take storage credits based on file size and attachments if there are any. When you keep it in that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you guys. This looks great. I started playing with it last week, so it's very user-friendly.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we can move on to our committee updates. So first up is education. So Carrie, do you have anything to update the group?
Hi guys. The education committee is mostly focused on GIS Day. I'm not going to talk about that because I'm going to let Thad talk about that in a second. But otherwise, there's some things that we've done in the past that we're looking to repeat this year, given some interesting COVID constraints with some of the K through 12 school systems. We're looking to do the Connecticut mapping competition again. Again, that's for middle and high school students, making Esri's ArcGIS Online web maps and story maps. That the effort starts in the fall and carries through the school year and then culminates in the spring with the student project. So we're just getting up and started with that. Megan talked about Maps for All at the last user meeting in June. We're setting up a meeting, hopefully here in the short term, to talk about that with that group and see how the network could potentially help with that effort. And then otherwise, just if anyone out there has any training opportunities online, conferences, meetings, webinars that they want to share, you can send those to me or to Mark, and we can post them on our website and share through our social networking avenues and so forth. So that is all I have to report from the education committee.
All right, Thad, you want to give an update on GIS Day?
Hi, Mark. Checking audio. Everyone can hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks. Also, if you'll permit, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. Yeah, thanks. Shout out to everybody today who's here. I see we're 40 plus in the crowd. Want to let everyone know, if you don't know yet, GIS Day is still happening. Because of the pandemic, obviously, we cannot get together as we usually do, all 100 plus of us in one place, as we don't want to put anyone in danger. We don't want to make this situation any worse than it is. So we've gone virtual. We're going to be using WebEx technology. We're being hosted by Central Connecticut State this year. They've been kind and generous enough to open their IT doors to us and really rolled out a red carpet for us. They're going to be helping us hand in hand with putting off a fantastic GIS Day that we're planning. This is going to include presentations, both live and recorded. The recorded ones are going to have a live Q&A afterwards, so there's still going to be that aspect. We're also going to have our map and app gallery, so definitely do submit for those. We're looking for map posters as PDFs. We've also talked on the planning committee about giving folks an opportunity to record a little, 5-minute explanation of their map and talk about that. Obviously, web apps are also welcome. We're looking to display those and make those available to everyone. Because we're doing this virtual, we do need you to register. So if you go to the network page and you click on the GIS Day link here, it'll bring you to this page. You'll notice right away that we have this GIS Helps up here. That is our theme for this year. So we're hoping that presentations can talk about how organizations are using GIS to help, whether it's help your community, help people, help the environment. How are you using GIS to make our lives in this world a better place? Because we know we all do that on a regular basis, and not everybody kind of gets the recognition they deserve for it. So definitely go to this webpage, click on the presentations form here. If you're going to fill out, that'll take you to a survey 123 you can fill out. If you plan on registering just to attend, make sure that you're clicking here on the register today. More details are going to be coming out, but just mark your calendars Friday, November 6th. Again, virtual, so you don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about traffic. Show up in your jammies with your cup of coffee at your computer and enjoy. I'm also going to throw out and take this opportunity to throw one more shout out for NERISA and their 3-day conference. You can go to nerissa.org and click on their webpage. Gives you all the information. Theirs is a 3-day conference, totally free, virtual. Again, they're using a Zoom presentation platform, so be sure to check out both of those. But obviously, first and foremost, GIS Day, and there's 40 plus of us here. If we all invite at least 1 or 2 other people, that would make a really nice crowd for GIS Day. So definitely consider it and give it some thought.
All right, great. Thank you, Tad. Next up is the Standards Committee being chaired by Mike Toll and Eric Lindquist.
Thanks, Mark. All right, so we at the Standards Committee have a few projects that are making some progress. We're working on a CAMA report standard. This is an effort to get a statewide parcel data set, that green data set. We are trying to do this initial process of making it so all the assessors, when they provide CAMA reports to the COGs to then get to the state, they're giving them almost identical reports. That's what we want to happen. So we're going through the process of creating what that report will look like, reaching out to the CAMA vendors so we can start building this standardized report. So we've been meeting on that, and we're meeting again soon to kind of go over what those are. So that's in development. That's exciting. The other part is Trails. Trails is being standardized. It's pretty much already done. We're just kind of convening with some of the major players. So we got Northwest Hills COG had a nice trails inventory they did, which basically set a nice stage for a standard. UConn's been heavily involved. They're involved with the trail census, and so we've been just convening with these meetings and making sure we get a trail standard in place. And the idea is if someone goes and starts collecting trail data, they're doing it in a way where it's the same type of trail data we're collecting throughout the state, so we can have a nice, beautiful trail data set. So that's coming along nice. And then on the fringe, there's been discussions about zoning, a zoning symbology layer or a zoning statewide layer. And since every town does zoning differently, getting a way to regionalize it or to look at it across the state has not been done. And so at West, a few folks are kind of like exploring this. Westcog, we're starting to build our own symbology. So these discussions will probably start to expand in the future. And then the last plug I have is if you're working on something that you think could be a state standard, you know, like maybe it's like has something to do with fire hydrants or something, you know, anything that could be state standardized, contact me. You can find my contact information at the Westcog website, and I'm happy to tie you into the standards committee. We can build some standards, even if they're really random or strange. You know, we can get everything standardized. So whatever's open, anything's open. That's about it. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. We did have several people reach out through the survey with interest in the Standards Committee, so I will be forwarding you their contact information as well. All right, next up is Eric for data acquisition.
As far as activity with this, I think it's mostly been centered on the work that you mentioned earlier in the meeting with the state legislators and UConn and state agencies trying to get together some kind of formal GIS leadership in the state, you know, with some, you know, with the ability to enforce standards like like Mike's talking about, and you know, with the goal of not having to cobble together the flight once stuff gets really stale, you know, at the last minute, and having to do all of that. But so far that seems to be going fairly well. I know that there have been many attempts at trying to get something like this done in lots of different forms, but I kind of have a feeling that you know, despite the impending budget issues, I mean, maybe once we've cleared those, we'll be in a position to get something really formalized and get some kind of you know, some kind of imagery and LiDAR products that we can depend on a regular basis. If anyone wants to contact me with some, you know, any other concerns or comments about acquisition in the state, please feel free to contact me directly. Like I said, I've been pretty much focusing on the work with John Guskowski and Emily Wilson and the legislators. So that's about all I have.
All right, thanks, Eric. And next up is communications. I don't know if Kristen is on. I don't see her. But I think communications has just been updating the website, keeping up with the social media. There is a Twitter account and a Facebook page or Facebook group. We also have a LinkedIn group as well. I don't know if I missed anything, Jenny. All right. And I think okay, great. All right, well, I think that pretty much wraps up our day today. Just want to thank everybody for jumping on. I know there were some technical difficulties, but I think we kind of solved that. We should be able to post the recording up to YouTube, and we'll have the link. We can also put together the presentation. So if you did present today with a PowerPoint, if you don't mind sending that PowerPoint to me just so we can link it in the meeting minutes. And just a reminder for everybody to register for GIS Day, NEARC, and NERISA. And we hopefully will have another network meeting in December, again, led by Mike Toll for his great work last December doing the social hour. So he's been called back to do it again this year. So we're trying to work how we're going to do that, you know, via Zoom, via WebEx or something, but we'll come up with something creative. Mike, it's going to be amazing. So all the pressure's on you now.
Yeah, it is.
Mike, that was really fun last year. You're kind of locked in. You can't give that up now. So
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
All right.